Picking up the source of the light of the East, chapter 3. Again, talking about the Dravidian culture of central India, which is the Indus Valley. Oh, we're talking about the authors of the great civilizations: India, Sumer, Canaan, Phoenicia, which Phoenicia was one of the cities of Canaan for the Bible followers. And all of these are black civilizations. Funny, I was talking to a young man who is Indian last week, and no, it was week before last. And I was asking him about Dravidian people because I know it is central and southern Indians that generally are Dravidian, and I know he's from southern India, and he happens to be Dravidian. And it was funny, in this book it states that these are black people, and when I had said something to him about black people, he said, "I'm a black person." And it threw me. Obviously, a lot of people are much darker than I am, but he is a very dark, very strongly melanated Indian man. And it was odd to hear an Indian person say, "I'm a black person." I had never really thought of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speak to other darker complected Indians and lighter complected Indians and see how black and white work in their culture. A lot of times when Americans think black, we think Africans or Negroid featured, not melanated skin. There are a lot of people that are as dark, if not darker, than Africans or descendants of the African diaspora. And I have to expand my mind to include blackness as a melanation as opposed to a physical characteristic. Thick lips, wide nose, large heads. So, pretty cool. These are the great, again, going back, India, Sumer, Canaan, Phoenicia. These are the great civilizations, and they had the true understanding of the great spiritual wisdom of antiquity. Antiquity being the ancient times. Just interesting. If I note similarities between West African Yoruba deity Obatala and the Dravidian goddess Tara, whose name mantra is Aum, A-U-M, and the Cometian deity Asar, whose conceals the mantra Aum, I can test my hypothesis by the existing rituals of Obatala, the goddess Tara, and the surviving material about Asar. What the Metu Netter is doing is showing consistency and truths throughout these original manifestations of God, as to where the story is the same, the names may change, or it may reflect the culture that it's in, but it's still the same. So that's why Christianity is truly accepted as a true religion, because it is the same story, different names. So that is why Africans were able to assimilate peaceably to Christianity because they already knew the story. Generally the story of Osiris and Horus. Again, the Indus Valley is what is now Pakistan and Northwest India. I have to check that. But the civilization in the Indus Valley, these cities were neatly laid out with rectangular city blocks, streets, crossing each other at right angles, which means the Pythagorean theorem was already in place. had brick houses, public baths with steam heating, underground sewer system. And this is as early as 3000 BC. And they were senselessly destroyed by whites when the Aryans invaded them. So just for clarity of name, the Indo-European, the Aryans are what we know as the ice people, white people, Caucasians, Europeans, Westerners. We already kind of talked about the Dasyus people, Dasyus, black people. They were black people in that they were Dravidians and black skin. And the whites imposed a rigid caste apartheid system, which the priests held absolute power, followed by secular leaders, kings, military men, followed by those that made up the merchant class, and last were the blacks. This is describing what happened once the Europeans came in and added the separatist nature to society. And if just to stop where we are, as we're going, well, one problem is I'm actually reading ahead. So I'm actually on chapter 6, so I'm applying information in chapter 3 from chapter 6 and chapter 5, so I shouldn't do that. In other words, it failed because intellectual activity cannot transform behavior. It is a confusion of category and ignorance of psychology and spiritual laws to try to make a people good by telling them to behave. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit and read on this because this is a really good sentence. The aspect of Buddhism, which is called Mahayana, the great vehicle, was able to transform people's being as it is based on a causal psychophysical principle that control man's behavior and growth. Buddhism is based in part on intellectualism and on the adherence of the code of conduct, which is in reality the effect and not the cause of spirituality. Okay, this is where the Metu Neter is explaining. When whites took over these true religions, these manifestations of God, they didn't understand them and they did not work because they were trying to make the effect the key, not the cause. I'm going to tell you how to behave, irregardless if your cause is why you're behaving that way. As to where before the Europeans took leadership of these religions, the focus was on the cause. If you connected with the right cause, your behavior then was as it should be, as opposed to because the left brain whites did not have an understanding of the right brain value system and also had no appreciation for the right brain value system. When they replicated these religions, they didn't work, which is why Christianity doesn't work, which is why Buddhism now doesn't work. All of these other religions that have been colonized by imperialism or been products of imperialism is exactly that. They have come up short because they are trying to be replicated off of rhetoric as opposed to the value system that actually established it. In addition to syncretism, enabled them to convert many blacks who would now worship their deities in the guise of the Dehena Buddhas. This is similar to what blacks did by the thousands years later in Brazil, Cuba, and Haiti. They syncretized the African deities with the Christian saints. So that's back to the point that I was making as to where the same thing happened with Buddha, goddess Tara, Hinduism, Christianity, that because these manifestations started with different groups of blacks and was bastardized by the Western people, the blacks who actually knew the original meaning could align their thought process with it. The problem is, as time went on, the true meaning kind of died out, or the people who remembered the true meaning were more of the minority and represented by the leadership of the religion as quacks and all of those people, which is why the voodoo priestess was, living in the woods or something. That's just some crazy person, when actually that's where our 100% of Catholicism is said to have come from. So again, we're at our 10 minutes, so we're going to pick this up. I believe this is video 8. Our next chapter is cosmology and cosmogony, and I think that we did touch on these before, and if we have to back up a little and pick up, that's fine. We're going to get deep into the cosmos now, and it's really interesting. We'll start touching on the tree of life and how we actually move from the subjective and objective realms and back.